I used to think peace was just the sound of wind moving through pine trees and the slow creak of a porch swing on a cool Virginia morning. Turns out, peace is fragile. It can snap the second a rich man decides your home is in his way. My name's Tom Keller. I'm a retired Navy guy, 20 years in the service, now running a small cattle farm outside a fancy development called Maple Ridge Estates. Those houses sprouted up across the road like beige mushrooms after a rainstorm. Perfect lawns, double garages, and folks who cared more about property values than neighbors. Their king was Harold Crane, president of the HOA, a man who smiled like he was selling something even when he wasn't. Harold's son, Chase, was the star quarterback at the local high school, same age as my daughter, Lena. Good kid, quiet, book smart, until those boys decided she didn't belong. It started small. Paint on her locker, a slash tire. Then a rumor she was crazy, whispered by kids whose daddies drank wine with Harold on weekends. I filed reports, but the school shrugged. Teen stuff, they said. Then one morning, I found a crisp white envelope pinned to my gate. A fine from the HOA. $100 for unmaintained agricultural fencing. I laughed at first, then noticed the ink was still damp. Someone had been here before dawn on my land. That chill I'd only felt overseas crept back in. I knew what this was, pressure. They wanted me to sell. Harold wanted my north pasture, where his next phase of houses was supposed to go. That Oak Ridge was worth millions to him. To me, it was just where my wife and I carved our initials 20 years ago. Later that same morning, Harold rolled up in his shiny black sedan. He stood at my gate, hands on his hips, looking over my fields like a general surveying conquered land. "Tom," he said with that fake smile, "this whole situation could be easier if you just took my offer. It's generous. This is my home," I told him. "Your community ends at the asphalt." His smile didn't move, but his eyes went cold. "It's a tough place to raise a teenage girl, all alone out here. Things can happen." He looked back at his son in the car. Chase met my eyes and dragged a finger across his throat, like it was a joke. I remember saying, quiet and steady, "You and your boy stay on your side of that fence." That night, I pulled out a trail camera from my old SEAL kit. Waterproof, motion activated, invisible. I strapped it high up in the oak tree, the same one Harold's lawyers kept trying to get easement rights through. If anyone crossed that line, I'd know. A week later, the day came. It was late autumn, cool and clean. I was out mending a fence when I realized Lena should have been home. 4 o'clock. No truck in the drive, no music from her room. I called voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. Then I saw her backpack by the door, like she'd made it home, but hadn't stayed. That old instinct kicked in, the one that kept me alive in places most people can't pronounce. I opened my laptop and pulled up the trail cam feed. What I saw, I still can't talk about without feeling that knot in my chest tighten. There was my daughter, walking through the woods, headphones on, and from the other side of the fence came 5 boys in Letterman jackets, Chase leading the pack. They surrounded her. She stood her ground, tried to walk past. One grabbed her arm. She fought, kicked. God, she fought hard, but there were too many. They zip-tied her wrists, laughing like it was a game. Then they threw a rope over the same branch where her old tire swing used to hang. They slipped it over her neck, lifted her just enough for her toes to scrape the ground. I could see Chase holding up his phone, filming. I could read his lips. "Where's your big bad Navy dad now?" I didn't breathe. Couldn't. And then I saw it. Her left hand tapping the side of her digital watch. Clumsy but deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. SOS. I bolted. My phone had no signal, but my neighbor Walt Finley must have heard her scream, because moments later I heard his old survival whistle echoing across the valley, our code for danger. By the time I reached the hangar, my Bell 206 helicopter was already whirring to life. I took off low and fast. From above, I spotted her, hanging from that oak, limp, barely moving. I swung wide, pretending to look for a landing spot, then dropped down 300 yards away behind a pine stand. I left the engine running, grabbed my knife, and ran. When I reached her, she was still breathing, shallow, ragged, but alive. I sliced the rope in one motion and caught her as she fell. Her wrists were swollen, her throat raw, but her eyes were calm. Still fighting. "Hey kiddo," I whispered. "About time," she rasped. I got her home, called Walt, called the sheriff. But before anyone arrived, I pulled the SD card from that camera. I watched every second. The assault, the laughter, Chase's smug face. Then I backed it up to 3 hard drives and a cloud server. Evidence doesn't mean much unless it's redundant. Later, I found one of those boys, Eli, the lanky one who looked scared on the footage. I cornered him near his garage. "You were there?" I said. He went pale. It was Chase's idea. His dad told him. He said your daughter needed to be scared. Make her seem unstable so you'd sell. He handed me his phone, shaking. Text from Chase. "Dad says it's the oak tree. Make it look convincing." That was the nail in Harold's coffin. Deputy Miller, an honest local guy, took the case. My neighbor, Dr. Evans, checked Lena and wrote a full medical report. Attempted homicide by ligature strangulation. Strong words, but true. The town was furious. The old judge up the road called the state attorney general himself. The whole community, the real one, not the gated kind, started circling the wagons. Harold tried spinning it. Called it a regrettable hazing incident. Hired lawyers, bought headlines. But he didn't know who he was dealing with. The next night was the Maple Ridge Annual Gala, the big fancy HOA event. I showed up uninvited, jeans and boots, not tux and tie. Their IT guy, a quiet kid whose sister went to school with Lena, had given me access to their projector system. While Harold was on stage bragging about unity and values, I replaced his slides with a video file. First frame, time-stamped footage from my trail cam. Then the photos of Lena's bruises. Then the text messages. "Dad says it's the oak tree. Make it look convincing." The whole room froze. Champagne glasses stopped midair. Harold stuttered, tried to call it fake. Chase tried to rush the stage. I met him halfway, one clean takedown, muscle memory from years of training. He hit the floor just as the deputies walked in. "Chase Crane," Miller said, cuffing him. "You're under arrest for kidnapping and assault." Then he looked at Harold. "And you, sir, for conspiracy to commit murder." The storm outside broke right then, thunder shaking the glass walls. Couldn't have scripted it better. The aftermath was fast and brutal. Harold's empire collapsed overnight. The development deal died. The HOA board resigned. Lena's name was cleared. Her strength turned into legend around here. A month later, we went back to that oak. The rope was gone, but the scar on the bark remained, a reminder. I climbed up, took down the trail cam, and replaced it with something better, a small brass bell. Ship style, polished bright. Lena stood beneath it, her voice steady again. "You sure about this, Dad?" "Yeah," I said. "This time, it's not a warning bell. It's a promise." She pulled the cord and the bell rang out, clear, proud, echoing through the valley. The sound carried for miles, bouncing off the hills, landing soft somewhere in the new quiet. We just stood there listening. Sometimes I still think about Harold Crane sitting in that courtroom, realizing the same thing every bully eventually learns, that you can buy silence, but you can't buy truth. And truth, once it starts ringing, it never really stops. So what do you think? Was I right to go public and humiliate them that way? Or should justice have stayed in the courtroom? Tell me what you'd have done if it was your kid. Drop a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. I've got more stories from the kind of quiet towns where peace is earned, not given.